All right, welcome everybody. Tonight we have Emma Super on the line talking about networking within cyber. Emma Super, feel free to take it off.
All right, thank you very much and welcome everybody. Today I wanted to give a talk on kind of a little bit less technical, something that we don't really focus on a whole lot in this group is the soft skills and the things that we need to really communicate, how to communicate our knowledge and really just furthering our careers beyond just the technical skills. So today's talk is all about cyber communities, cyber conferences, and then using all of that to grow your career and at the end of the day, level up your cyber network. So a little bit about me. This is my second talk that I've given in Null 404, but this is just my technical resume. I've been in cybersecurity for the last 5 years, and before that, I was a network engineer for about the same amount of time. But outside of the technical specs, I've been an attendee at DEF CON, Black Hat for the past couple years, gone to Cisco Live for the past 5 years online and in person. I think we have some feedback from someone. But I've been a conference attendee for quite a few years. I've gone to B-sides locally, gone to numerous cyber organizations, including Null 404, but also in-person groups. And just over the years have gotten so many different, connections and speaking with other folks in the industry. I've gotten, job recommendations, links to jobs, kind of that next step of communication in cyber where you're not just in a resume monster submitting to LinkedIn jobs willy-nilly, actually making those connections. And it's really helped my career. I'm really happy with where I'm at, but I want to pass that knowledge on to you because at the end of the day, the cybersecurity community is growing, and we have a lot of folks that want to get to a successful spot in their career, but just knowing the technical skills really isn't enough most of the time. You really need to have those soft skills and focus on communicating and selling yourself, so to speak. So, but that's kind of the agenda for today's talk. So we'll start off with some general thoughts on networking and cybersecurity. So these are just things that I've seen over the years. We've got quite a few in this group that have been around for many more years than I have. But then there are some that have just gotten into cyber, maybe just started reading cybersecurity articles, started looking at pen testing or doing some cool stuff on their own. Just want to make sure that we all start on that same playing field with like those general thoughts. And then from there, we can kind of talk a little bit more about, what makes up these cybersecurity groups that you can join. How can these help you get you to those next levels in terms of communication and furthering your career? And then we'll move into kind of the same thing with cybersecurity conferences. So if you've ever been to a conference before, either online or in person, you know that it can be a lot, but it can also be very worthwhile. So we'll take a look at those. And then kind of the last point is tying it all together. So all of the communication skills that you learn at cybersecurity groups and conferences and on your own time, how can you tie all of that into furthering your career? So taking that plus your technical knowledge and making it your big selling point. And then, at the end, I have Q&A time set aside, but I want this to be a conversation. I don't want it to just be me speaking for an hour or whatever. So if we get a break between slides, you have a question, feel free to unmute and we'll stop and talk about it. But okay. So without further ado, let's kind of talk about, the world of professional cyber networks. So not like networking technologies. This is more of person-to-person communication. like I said before, this industry is growing at a really rapid pace. Um, and there's a few reasons why I wanted to give this talk. So, number one, it's really cold here in northeastern Wisconsin, where I am. The last 5 day high hasn't been above zero. Um, Conference season is around the corner, and I really want to be in Vegas because it's much, much warmer. Um, Second point is I love talking about conferences and getting hyped up for meeting people and getting in front of everybody to kind of wrap up what I've been working on behind the scenes. And the last point is just, there have been a lot of new faces in this group, especially since I've joined. Um, and I've seen a lot of talks. I really hope that there's a lot more folks that are looking to give talks because it's really helpful. Um, and yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of us here that work in cybersecurity, or at least have somewhat of a stake in cybersecurity, because obviously Null 404 is that security community. So you're curious enough to join this. It's really easy to kind of hop in and translate that to any other experience that you want to do. So when it comes to cybersecurity communities and expanding your professional network, nothing is going to boost your career more than that. You can keep adding bullet points to your resume all day long, but if you want to add career value outside of your day job, maybe you don't want to spend 9 to 5 working on the same thing. You want to work on a personal project. Um, this is something you might want to consider, or maybe even you want to make friends with similar interests. If you're the only red teamer on your team at work, then you don't really get to talk about all of those cool things that you might have heard in the news or the tools that you use. Or, maybe you want to learn some new skills, but you don't feel confident enough in doing that at work. You want to do it at a personal project level, but you don't want to do it alone. And then lastly, maybe you want to be like me right now and showcase your knowledge to, a group of people or just a couple friends, or maybe even a conference talk, thousands or hundreds or thousands of people. These are all really good, things to consider. If these are things that you want to do with your career and you want to further it, definitely go attend a conference, go join a group, market yourself, and talk about what you know. But a lot of the times, what I've seen, I'm an introvert. I've said that many times. Like, I love public speaking. One of my hobbies is, I love drumming. I love being a musician. So getting up in front of a group of people is not super difficult for me. But one-on-one conversation, or, speaking into a microphone in, a virtual room is a little daunting. Um, it's obviously not, something that just goes away. You kind of have to practice it. But if you have doubts about joining a cybersecurity community, it might come from a place of just that introvertedness. Talking is tough. I get it. Even when it's all virtual, it's really tough to convey your ideas without that sense of feedback. You might think, I'm not interesting enough to host a talk. It might be just coming from a place of technical knowledge. Not everybody knows everything. Like, you can't know every single little thing. And even having just, uh, you know, one topic that you know a lot about is super interesting. Maybe, you think, who would want to hear what I have to say? I've got all of these friends. They kind of ignore me. I get on my technical rants, and they kind of just tune me out. That's not everybody. I definitely fall into that category. I just start talking and hope somebody stops me at some point. And then, there are people that suffer from burnout. I'm burned out in my current role, or I'm looking for a new job. Why would I want to hear more about security? Um, this is something that kind of hits home because analyst burnout is real. It can't be helped by working yourself into the ground, but joining a cybersecurity group doesn't mean that you have to completely just talk about security. A lot of the groups, grab a beer and talk about, what hikes they're going on, or what trips they're going to go see, or other conferences that they're going to, people to meet. So, um, but yeah, maybe you want to get started in cybersecurity networking and meeting people, but maybe there's that little sliver of doubt. And so, what happens there? People say, okay, well, it can't be. Or I can't devote all 100% of myself to that, so I'll only put in half effort. What's the worst that could happen? At least I'm there. Um, this isn't to call out anyone's preference for how they enjoy groups. I've known people that just like to show up and enjoy the free booze, but there are others that want to learn all the time. Um, Enjoy them how you will, but if you're looking to grow your network in a way that furthers your career, these are just some of the things that in my opinion, you shouldn't do. So definitely don't join a cybersecurity group and just lurk around for months and months. Um, if you're just trying to learn these things like technical skills, you could spend your time on YouTube and GitHub, um, getting a lot more fulfillment that way. You could also just sign up for conventions and just cruise to the after parties. Don't talk to anybody on the show floor. You basically just wasted your money. You end up hungover, and you don't really meet anybody meaningful unless you meet somebody at the bar and then you can't remember their name. So really, what was the point? Um, you sign up for a convention, and instead of actually going to talk to people, you just go and attend all of the talks that you can. I've done this. It's cool to go see all of the technical stuff that's there. But at the end of the day, you spent the money to be there, and nobody knows who you are. And you basically, again, just learn the things that you could find on the internet. Looking up people's resumes and things like that, it's much more worthwhile to just go to the conference and actually use that time to network yourself. And then the last point, attending an in-person meetup with friends. Obviously, if you're an introvert, it's cool and comfortable to go with friends that you know. But do your friends know everything that you want to talk about? Like if you're a red teamer, but all of your friends are, you know, policy gurus, like you can't really talk to them about certain things. And if there are other red teamers in the crowd and you don't go talk to them, then, you know, who knows what kind of connections could be there. So tying this all up, it seems like a lot of hard work. Like you got to break a lot of boundaries and network, talk to people. And at the end of the day, you kind of get that sense of dread where it's like, do I even want to be in this field? Do I want to continue trying to sell myself? Should I just go back and work at my computer? Is it all worth it? And in my opinion, it absolutely is. You can learn. I've been in so many interviews where the interviewer has told me, you know, technical skills can be taught on the job, especially entry level jobs. There might be some discrepancy there, but most entry level jobs have the skills outlined. And if you don't know them, they can pretty easily taught. But those soft skills are things that you really have to work on, and they can give you that one up above everybody else in the market. It's a crazy competitive market, and it's all about how you use these tools, these soft skills effectively, to make it, you know, where you want to be. So, like I said before, I'm going to focus on the big points in this talk, which are cybersecurity communities, conferences, and then tying that all together to further your career. So before we get into cybersecurity groups, do we have any questions about anything?
Yeah, Ben, I know we met. Oh gosh, I'm trying to throw back to when we met, but like, what would you say is like the number one difference you found pro con versus online versus in person?
You're just like differences between in-person conventions and online conventions.
Yeah, like do you see like a huge gain versus in person versus online, and or if there is any, did you find a way to bridge the gap?
So I mean, in the amount of online conferences that I've been to, it's a lot like this group that we're in right now, right? Like a lot of people are listening to talks. Everybody's on mute most of the time, unless there's like a breakout room where people go and actually hang out and talk about these kind of things. The engagement is kind of slim, and you really have to put yourself out there to be that point of contact, I guess. Whereas, and as an in-person conference, um, you could just walk around the show floor and just say hi to somebody. Most of the time, I sit at a lock picking table, and that's how I make all the new contacts that I have. Like everybody just loves to do that kind of stuff and make small talk. So I would say, in-person conventions would be the most beneficial to me. But it could be different for everybody, I guess.
That makes sense.
Cool. Okay, so let's dive into cybersecurity groups. So there's a couple different groups, right? You've got the online groups that meet in Discord. You've got in-person groups. If you're if you're new to this group, welcome. If this is your first cyber group that you've joined, that's awesome, and it's okay to join more. Like I said, if you want to translate the skills that you learn in one group between other groups, it's really helpful. You might have a talk that you give to one group and you want to pass it along to others. Um, so let's start, finding the right groups. So obviously, you can type into Google search cybersecurity communities or cybersecurity groups. It's going to come back with a ton of results. Um, there's a few communities that I'm a part of that have been really beneficial. This one, obviously, but Black Hills Information Security. Um, Definitely check into the local groups that you have in your town. Um, Most folks usually have some sort of security group in their area. If not, it might be a little ways away. I know in San Diego we had quite a few, but in northeastern Wisconsin it's a little less populated. It's just about doing that research, seeing what's available to you, and if nothing is in person that's close to you, you can always, hop in online. And they've got LinkedIn groups, groups on X, Blue Sky, Mastodon. Besides the spammers that exist on all those social media platforms, there are some pretty awesome folks on there. Um, you can learn a lot from them, reading their blog posts and seeing what communities they're a part of, so that you can get that information before it hits the internet. The other things you can consider, meeting up with a group in person and maybe joining a CTF group. I know we've got one here for Null 404, but they've also got Try Hack Me groups, Hack the Box. These are, usually free resources. You might have to pay some money to become pro members at some points. My pro tip to you is, unless you can afford it, start by joining groups that are free without a mandatory membership fee, because you can always support down the road. You can boost the server, you can make donations, you can buy merch, you can give talks later. It's all about getting that initial engagement. So if you can't afford it, great. But if you don't want to break the bank, you can definitely join groups for free. They are out there, and groups like B-Sides and even the regional cybersecurity meetups that I know of don't charge a whole lot of money for admission to like conferences or just to be part of that group. And you might not find a group that fits your interests. If you don't have friends in the area or you don't know of anybody that shares that interest with you, then that's awesome. You have the opportunity to make that group. You can start that Discord server. Um, Having those connections to kind of get your name out there might take a little bit, but having that initial starting point of saying, hey, I'm the founder of this group and here's what we do is really cool. It looks great on your resume. And yeah. Once you're in a cybersecurity group, though, like I said before, you can lurk around and kind of listen to the group for a while, for a few sessions, and that's fine. But in order to really make an impact, you don't just want to be, an icon on the screen. You want to make yourself known. You want to hear your voice in the recordings. You want to ask good questions. Um, and so being active in the group is a huge part of, making these worthwhile. So asking the good questions, being in the discussions, even if it's just I agree, or, I acknowledge, whatever is being talked about, just validating that you are there. You want to be there and you want to learn. And then, taking that knowledge that you've learned and sharing it. So whether that's in a blog post or talking to a friend who might be interested in cyber, then, that those are just things you can take along with you. And, you know, the groups that I've been a part of in Discord have different channels for sharing different types of information, whether it's news, hobbies, job postings. Do the same there too. If you've got a job opening at your company that is cybersecurity related, maybe you found a cool article that you're working on from a personal project, share it out and see what engagement you can get. And then just a huge point here, nobody likes spammers. I know like a lot of groups have spam bots and things to counteract, people who just join the group to drop Bitcoin scams or things like that. But even just, joining a group and spamming messages and kind of going outside of the norms, you don't want to be asking for a job right away as you join a server. It doesn't really look that great. So, definitely start by reaching out to folks if you have questions about something. Don't use it as a sales opportunity, I would say. Instead, what you can do is use that time to practice communication. And I'll repeat it a couple more times. Like, communicating is the number one skill that you can have, no matter what industry you work in. As long as you can sell yourself, talk about your ideas, your vision, you're going to be, really valuable in your field. So as you practice communication, you want to make sure that you're actively listening. So this is where it all ties into kind of listening in your cybersecurity communities. Be that active listener, take notes, take mental notes if you're in person. And once you feel comfortable enough to take those, skills of listening, you can actually start to, drive conversations, because what you have to say most of the time, not everybody else is thinking that, especially when it comes to technology. And if you have something interesting to say, it's better to just bring it up and see who else is interested in saying it or hearing about it. And then just, as part of conversations, we don't like talking to robots. We talk to AI now, but we don't like talking to robots. We like talking to humans. So be yourself, make mistakes, be organic. If you have questions or things aren't clear, raise your hand. Make sure that you get all the information you can, because answering your question blindly is not only embarrassing, but it hurts when you're trying to work on your communication and you take that negatively. And once you have all of those skills of communication and working on breaking that introvert boundary is going to take some time. Once you do all of that, you can kind of take that to the next step of saying, I want to share my experiences. I want to give presentations. I want to share my thoughts with the world, and even taking it a step further and saying, I want to mentor somebody. There are people that I know that have not a whole lot of technical background, but having those soft skills to even mentor somebody in is huge. From my standpoint, mentoring is something that I've wanted to do, but just having those one-on-one communication skills, um, knowing that they weren't that up to standard was kind of irritating. So I started presenting more, talking to more folks, and um, if you like public speaking, this is a great opportunity to really give back to those communities that you join. So, like I said, giving presentations. If you join open source security projects, you can contribute to their rules that they're writing or any of their frameworks that they're doing. Um, if you want to take that technical route, but if you don't like public speaking, the best way to practice and build your skills is to give talks and to start talking to people. So I think that's pretty much it for what I have to say about cybersecurity communities. I'll just say, there are two sides to networking. From what I've seen, on the positive side, it's really nice to be able to disengage from the day to day, especially if you've had a rough time at work. Uh, the time before your cybersecurity group meeting. So having that community and that mentorship can help you, kind of reset mentally, and it also helps your social engagement. So having those contacts out there that want to hear about what you have to talk about, um, it really helps you kind of validate those experiences as opposed to just soaking in all the information you can and just kind of going about your day. The opposite side of that, though, let's say you join too many networking groups. You take on too many things outside of work. At that point, you're super stressed. You have that pressure to stay active in the groups and contribute. I've felt that way, sometimes where I've taken on a lot of things all at once, and it's really tough to try to keep that in line then with work and everything else in your personal life. So, as an introvert, social fatigue is huge as well. Participating in multiple events or going to too many conferences in a short amount of time instead of taking that time to rest is really valuable for people like me. So um, having the balance to kind of say it, don't overcommit yourself. I don't want to overcommit and sell myself short. I want to find the center and really get the most out of those groups. So out of everything that I've kind of talked about with networking groups, kind of just summarizing it, just balancing work and play. You want to make sure that you're getting the most out of them, working on your communication skills. And, as you get towards that point where, it might be a good time to stop and take a break, overcommitting is the one thing that can really affect your mental health. So make sure you're in a good headspace to do all of this, especially if you're an introvert and you want to keep in a good space before you take on the next big task. So before we get into convention, I think we have somebody who's not on mute. But before we get into conventions, is there any questions about cybersecurity groups? Okay. So, you've enrolled or you've joined a bunch of cybersecurity groups, either online or in person, and then somebody says, okay, I want to go to DEF CON. I want to go to convention. I want to go meet new people. For those of you who have ever attended a cybersecurity convention, you know that it's really exciting. And just going through the schedules and planning your trip and all of those things, looking at after parties responsibly, it's a really fun opportunity to meet people. But maybe you've never been to a cybersecurity convention or a conference, and that's okay. It's first time for everything. we'll kind of talk about how to get the most from these conventions. So before you can actually, go to the event, obviously step one is to research the conferences that are based on your interests. So if you're super technical, then, looking at something like DEF CON or, a red team event or some sort of programming event possibly. These are all things that might be up your alley. But if you're a policy and compliance person, you don't really care about flipper zeros or lock picking or things like that. A lot of these conferences cost money, and the number one rule here is to not break the bank, and especially you don't want to waste your money on things that you're not interested in. So if you've got friends that are going to a conference that have said, we're going to go do our own thing. If you look at the conference itself and nothing is really interesting to you, it might be better to just, save that money and go to something that does interest you. So making the best decision financially, but also, looking at, who's going to be there, what kind of conferences are in my area. Maybe I don't have to travel super far. And then, like I said, looking at the speakers, who's going to be there, workshops that are happening, things that you could learn for free, or possibly training for your job or for your personal project that you're working on, and then any vendors as well. If you're not going as a company, persona, if you're not going as part of a business deal or something like that, a lot of the vendors, have big flashy signs to say, come check us out. 15 minutes, we can give you free AirPods and things like that. If you're just going by yourself, don't look for the vendors with the best giveaways. They're usually not worth it, unless they're talking about a really interesting topic in terms of technology, or somebody that you want to talk to afterwards, like the speaker that they're going to bring up is going to be there. Just don't look for the vendors that, based on giveaways alone. Another good tip is to just, set specific goals. What are you looking to get out of the conference? If you're going to look for potential mentors, if you're only there to, explore job opportunities. I spent several weeks a couple years ago after I left my previous role. I spent weeks looking at the agenda for cybersecurity conferences, every topic, every speaker, what info I could get from each of them, just to say, I read about this or looked into what you had mentioned, a few years ago about this subject. So setting those goals ahead of time is going to make the conference a lot better, as opposed to just going in blindly and not really knowing what to expect. And there are videos on how to attend pretty much every conference, every major conference that I've seen. So there's a really good video about how to attend DEF CON appropriately. There are videos on how to make the most of B-sides and the smaller conferences. So just finding those areas and saying, I've watched this video, I feel like I have a good base to go into an event like this. And if you know folks that are going to this conference, reach out on LinkedIn. It's not weird to say, I'm going to, this conference, and make a post about it just publicly, and getting that engagement, let's meet up, those kind of things. Obviously, there are people that could take that information and kind of abuse that. But if you know the friends or folks that are going to the conference, you can definitely just, make it known that you're also going. So then you have folks to go meet up with and make it more comfortable. Okay, so after you prepare for the conference, you book your plane ticket, you drive to get there, then you get to the event, and it's super exciting. Now, you paid for the ticket, so you want to make sure that you get the most out of the conference. The three things that exist in the DEF CON rules: getting sleep, getting food, taking showers, being a human being. These apply not to just, DEF CON and Black Hat, these apply everywhere. So if you want to make a good human impression on somebody, you can't be sleepy, you can't be hungry, and especially you have to be clean. Um, those first impressions matter. And if you get to the conference and try talking to people, you want to be on, your best self. So once you get to the conference, engage with people, engage with speakers, ask those questions, take the notes that you can, use for soft skills, but also take technical notes. So in case you run into them in the hallway, you can say, "Hey, I went to your talk and I thought, this part was really interesting." Um, just getting yourself out there, super, super important. Prioritizing key sessions, making sure that, you made that conference plan before you got here. Go see those sessions that you wanted to go see, but leave room to go and talk to people. Don't just go to every talk that you can. A lot of those talks are recorded anyway, so you can go find them on YouTube afterwards. Um, a lot of being at a conference is just talking, and there are people that walk around with Hall's cough drops in their backpacks for a reason. It's a lot of talking. Visit vendor booths, but again, focus on learning. Don't want to, you can win the Lego set if you want. Cool, awesome. Now you have to ship it back to your house. Um, Speaking from experience, but visiting the vendor booths and talking with the folks that are there about different companies or the technology that they're selling is really key, and especially if you're interested in possibly working on that as a personal project. And if somebody offers you to go to these after hours events, they're super exciting. Um, Usually free food, free drinks, whatever to try to get you to go, sales pitch to follow kind of deal. Definitely, consider going to them. If there are people that offer other events that you can't go to, make sure that you get their info. Not their flyers, but you know, talk to them. Ask if they've got other after parties. See what booth they're working at. You can go follow up with them tomorrow to see what all happened at the party. Don't attend it just for the booze. It's nice to unwind after a long day on the convention floor with some drinks, but again, being hungover the next day is not ideal, especially if you're trying to be there and make the most out of your time. So join the events, go to, the special club that they have for meeting up with folks after the show. And this entire time, right, if you're looking for jobs and you want to make it known that you've been there, you've talked to people, print off some business cards. People carry around copies of their resume, and that's fine. I've seen people with little note card resumes, which are really cool. The best way to market yourself and to just pass along that information, printing off a business card with LinkedIn QR codes, or a link to your Google Drive resume folder. That gets a little sketchy at cybersecurity conferences. So just having some way to pass along that information of, hey, I'm a human being, I'm interested in this field, follow up with me after the show or after the conference. So once the conference is over, you got to go back home, and it stinks. You got to wait until next year to go see everybody again. But most of the time, those people that you met want to talk to you. So connect with those contacts that you reached out to within a few days. Mention, hey, I met you at this booth, or we went to this after party. We talked about this project, or those kind of things, just to refresh their memory. Make it known that you want to be there and talk to them. Share insights on LinkedIn. Make your blog posts. Share X's or tweets or whatever you call them. Go into your Discord threads and share what you learned. Keep the conversation going. That's kind of the big point of post-event follow-up, is just don't let the convention be the place where ideas go to die. Just keep the conversation going. Reach out to folks that you found interesting. And when it comes to reaching out, you don't want to be desperate. You don't want to be salesy. if you have a question about something, definitely reach out, but don't just reach out when you need something. It's really irritating, especially for job recruiters, because they have a lot of people reaching out to them after conventions and conferences. So making yourself as professional as you can be while referencing your experience is really key. So uh, before we get into this next part, just want to make sure, are there any questions on conventions and conferences? Cool. So we'll,
Actually, sorry. I was
no,
gonna
you're good.
say I really like how you broke down some of those things. And again, you can just tell me to shut up if you're gonna cover this later. But like the things that I did for DEF CON this past year was coming up with like a plan. So I know you're talking about like what did I want to get from DEF CON or any security conference it really applies for. For example, like what is my goal when I went to DEF CON this past year? Was it to like learn something new? Was it to meet someone in the field that I'm currently in? Is it to meet people in a field that I want to be in? And for like last year, I was coming off of active duty military, and I was looking for my first job on the civilian side of cybersecurity. So my real heavy focus was like, I'm not here to go learn all the latest cool, like how to hack something. My job right now would be to find people in this very particular field in the Pacific Northwest area where I live to find this job. And I want to network with people in that field. So, like, I did a workshop that was blue team focused because I was looking for people like at Microsoft. So I went to like the Microsoft talk. And in fact, I think some of no one currently is here, but there's people who like get my name out there and like, hey, I'm looking for roles, and they assisted me in getting interviews and everything else. So like I think that's like a really interesting way you could like approach it, is like, what is my goal of going to this conference? Like ask that big hierarchy thought process. And if it's just to go and like drink beer and talk with people in the field, like that's a 100%. I do that to a couple conferences up here, but just that was like my 2 cents. Just
Yeah.
coming up with a strategy.
Yeah, it's huge. And like I said, going into spending a huge amount of money in a conference is really daunting, especially if you don't really have a plan to be there. And if it's, just a thing over the weekend where it's free, but you want to go spend time with people, then even then, just who's going to be there? Is it going to be worth my time? There's a million things I could be doing. And I totally agree. It's cool to unwind with folks and do all of that, but at the end of the day, I want to make sure that people know who I am. So cool. So the last part, we talked about cybersecurity groups, we talked about conferences, and kind of building those skills of putting yourself out there, practicing communication, and how do I translate that into actually growing my cybersecurity career. So the first thing, obviously, kind of following up on what I just mentioned about reaching out to people after conferences, it's not unheard of to be, taken advantage of, or reaching out to people who, might ghost you or waste your time. So be careful when reaching out to strangers. You want to make connections with people that you trust, obviously. You want to find the legit people that you want to keep talking to and add them to your network. So whether it's the cybersecurity group, whether it's the conference, whether it's somebody at the coffee shop or down the street, you want to add people to your network that aren't going to help you. It's just one of those things where if you find somebody that has the experience that you want to have, or you want to learn more about, then you want to follow and get as much information from them as you can. So staying in touch with those worthwhile connections, engaging with their content, using your network to discover those possible job openings before they get out to LinkedIn or posted on the Discord channel. Don't expect to be hired on recommendations alone, especially if you're talking to these folks. A lot of people will say, hey, I know this guy, and he said he'd get me the job. It has Now, it has happened where people do that and they don't make it very far in the interview process because of that. You need to know your stuff when it comes to a technical role, anything in cybersecurity like that. But that referral, that person that you met at the conference or engaged with on LinkedIn can, put your name in and get you out of that resume, the quote unquote resume monster, where everybody has the same number of years of experience, the same skills, maybe the same town even, just to say, I met this person. He's a real cool guy. She's got all of this experience and, personal projects like crazy. And obviously kind of keeping in mind, if you sign up for those extra things where you're giving talks and doing all of those things with folks, you want to make sure that you're available, especially if people start reaching out to you for interviews and conversations. You want to be available and dependable, and just being able to communicate that formally and professionally if you can't. One of the big things that I found recently was, this free course from TCM Security. So they offer a bunch of different technical trainings, but they also offer a soft skills training. So as part of your learning for a role that involves technical ability, keep in mind that soft skills again are just huge things that could set you apart from everybody else in the market. So working on communications, how to write your resume, how to give the showstopper interview that'll get you the job for sure. These are all really solid skills that just take time, and be open to speaking opportunities when they happen, because these are great ways to build those skills. But in your free time, there's courses online that can help you understand, maybe the things that you need to learn. Writing emails and, like I said, giving interviews. Like technical interviews for me are the most stressful thing in the world, where all of my brain is put on the spot at once. So if you're like me, definitely practice those interview skills. And if you know somebody in the field or is a technical recruiter, be sure to pick their brain and see what they're looking for when it comes to these kind of roles and interview opportunities. Another huge point is, you can collaborate with folks in your cybersecurity groups where, somebody might have a CTF that they're working on, or open source project that they're putting together for like web design, or, it could be whatever that you're interested in. See what it's about. Go join it, do a write-up on it. Kind of tying back again, if you're not available to do these kind of things, make sure that you have those boundaries set before you start reaching out. But if you have the time and you have the resources and you want to learn, there's nothing holding you back. Just do it. But going back to the soft skills course here, they do offer through TCM, from what I see, there's a exam that'll actually walk you through like every single point of the job application process, which is absolutely wild. It does cost money, but the course itself, the soft skills training, is free on their website. From what I've gone through of it so far, it's pretty solid. So it might be something to look into. But again, nothing can replace real life experience with this stuff. So actually practicing it with a friend or a cybersecurity group that you joined can make the world a difference. So with all that said, kind of wrap it up here with a couple things. So we talked about cybersecurity groups. There's a lot of excellent folks. There's a lot of cool people, and the knowledge bank there is huge. You could learn as much as you could from cybersecurity groups. And then conferences, same thing. You could talk to everybody there, learn as much as you could, unwind at the pool bar after and meet the coolest CISO that you've ever met in your life. They're a great use of time. And then growing your career. The whole idea of building your communication skills and all of that is just being confident and the confidence takes time, but building that confidence, knowing that you have talked to or know folks that they've been where you are right now. Maybe you just started out in the field. People just didn't spawn into CISO roles. They worked to get there, and even sysadmins that have been in a company for 25 years, they know what they're talking about, and they know how they got started. So having those connections from just entry level folks all the way up to the technical gurus that exist in the world. Those are just awesome contacts to have, great perspectives. So when it comes to networking, it's really important to focus on the real relationships. You don't want to be out collecting contact cards, business cards. You can have 500 plus connections on LinkedIn, but does anybody actually know who you are? Those are things that matter. So, cybersecurity is a community. It, can really help you with whatever you're working on, whether it's a project, whether it's training for your next role. When you engage with the community, you grow. And as far as I can tell, in the time that I've been in the cybersecurity community, I've grown not only like technical knowledge, but socially as a person has been outstanding. I absolutely love giving talks and sharing that knowledge out there. So, build those skills and gain that confidence so that you can also, share what you know. Whether it's a project or a question about the news, or, maybe you want to know what another person is working on, having that initiative to make that first step is huge. So what can you do now with all this information? So go ahead and join a new group. And if you're the first, if Null was the first group that you joined, welcome. You already completed step one. Build those skills, reach out, engage, and maybe join some other groups, And once you have all of that in mind, go ahead and sign up for a conference. Go and see what's available online, what's in person, what could be worth your time. And then the entire time, just think about starting a conversation. Have those questions or those key points in your head of what you do every day, what's interesting to you, and just being ready to kind of explain that and have that back and forth with somebody. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up everything that I had here. If there's any other questions, or like I said, if there's anybody that has experience that wants to share other topics and things like that related to career growth in cyber, feel free. But yeah, thank you very much for listening.
Thanks a lot, Ben. I definitely your topic you brought up regarding